enough period of time to create the new paradigm. But in order to do that, you have to rewire the foundation to end up in a different situation. So we're going to watch 3 videos. Okay. Now this is very important. Think about this for just a moment. These gentlemen are sitting at the table. You got Ray Dalio, you got Larry Fink, and you got Jamie Dimon. Let's let that sink in. Larry Fink, the largest asset manager in the world, Jamie Dimon, the head of JP Morgan. Larry Fink and Jamie Dimon run our country, guys. It's not the president running the country. Okay. Then you got Ray Dalio, who is one of my favorite mentors out there that I've studied his books. What is it? I'm sorry, the debt crisis, the big debt crisis, the changing world order. And that's where I get a lot of my information from. And I went deeper into origin, understanding how this has happened over and over again. So first we're going to hear from Ray Dalio's part of this conference. Then we're going to hear from, I think next I have Jamie Dimon and Larry Fink. So if you don't want to listen to me, listen to what they say, start writing notes where they're taking us, or not where they're taking us, where the economy is going.
Books. In one of your recent books, you talked about 5 forces that are affecting the global economy. So can you succinctly tell us how these forces are going to move the economy forward the next couple of years or so, adversely or positively?
Adversely, I'm fear, but positively, potentially. Yeah, as a global macro investor for the last 50 years.
Hear what he said? He said negative out of fear, but then at the end, he's pessimistic. So pay attention.
My job has been to bet on what is going to happen globally, macro. And what I learned in my lifetime is that many of the things that surprised me happened because they didn't happen in my lifetime, but they happened many times in history, particularly the 1930 to 45 period. So these 5 forces have always interacted, and I think everything that we're going to talk about today will be related to those 5 forces, and they interact. And those 5 forces, of course, are the debt, money, interest rate, economy force. The second is the internal order or disorder force.
Okay, so we got high interest rates. We're buried in debt. There is no money in the system. So our parents and grandparents did not experience this type of economy that we're experiencing.
In other words, the internal conflicts that we are having today and the debts that we are having today are the largest since the 1930 to 45 period. And also you go back in history and you've seen enormous amounts of those. They have implications. The third great force, of course, is the international geopolitical force. 2 great powers that are rival powers. And then, of course, the fact that there isn't a single world order. There isn't a single world power. It's very different than in 1945 when the new world order was created, because you have a war, a dominant power comes out, or dominant powers, and they set the rules and everybody goes by the rules. Well, this is a very different world. And so those 3 forces, I wanted to examine those over the last 500 years, because to think about rises and declines of reserve currencies, rises and declines of empires and so on, I needed to get the perspective of that. And I discovered that the other 2 great big forces were acts of nature, which droughts, floods, and pandemics have killed more people than wars.
Okay, so we have the pandemic. We're going into World War III. We have high interest rates. We're buried in debt. China's economy is struggling. Russia's economy is struggling. We're in internal conflict, and we have world conflict.
And are certainly a dominant force at this time. And then the 5th great force has always been man's inventiveness and technology. So we have these 5 forces interacting. So everything that we're going to talk about will be related to each one of those. And I think if we step back and we put each one of those in a historic perspective, say, how are their degrees of influence compared to those in history? The largest wealth gaps since the 1930 to 45 period, populism and so on. So those are the 5 forces. I think if we're looking at them and their evolution, it's like watching a movie play out over and over again if you have that historical perspective. And as we're looking at it, what we're seeing around the world today, as we go into the elections that we're going to see in the United States, which are going to be over irreconcilable differences about wealth and power. And then we look at the geopolitical situation, and then we look at the climate issue. The climate issue is going to cost us, it's estimated, between $5 and $10 trillion a year in a world GDP that produces 100 trillion. So anyway, I think that those five big forces, as we look at, if we look at historical perspectives and analogous periods, I think that that'll help us. I think we have to be concerned about that dynamic that's taking place.
But
So I'll stop it there. I won't play the other guys because what Ray says basically encapsulates everything, I think, in a nutshell, and it's very relevant to what I'm talking about. So there's a few things that he mentioned in there that I thought were really telling. I had of those five, I had four of them, and he put in another one, acts of nature, climate change. Well, yeah, there is a certain act of nature going on with the climate, but we know also there is a certain man-made component to it as well, because I think they are capitalizing on the fact that in the solar system, the climate is changing. So they are making out like, obviously, that's our fault, our problem. If they make it our responsibility, then basically then we have to pay. We have to pay for it. That's what they're angling. And they're trying to make money out of it via carbon credits and all this sort of stuff. But all that aside, that's another whole can of worms in itself. What I want to focus on is these big forces that are at work. So we know that everything goes in cycles. We are now in a super cycle of various colliding cycles in these different areas of life. And there's the big economic cycle that's going on. The rises and falls of economic powers and all this, and there's political cycles. You'll see definitely that's all interwoven, as you said, it's all integrated. There's the currencies. There's a cycle within the economy. There's cycles of currency that are constantly evolving, and we're in the sunset stage of the US dollar as the reserve currency, and that is effectively pulling down all the other fiat currencies, particularly in the Western world. We were in there's technological cycles. There's climatic cycles as well, and nature, as he alluded to. You'll see cycles everywhere in nature. The rise of the sun and the setting of the sun and the moon, and astrological cycles, rises and falls of empires and civilizations, which is directly tied to political and economic cycles. And we have cycles, or what they call biorhythms, on a physical, emotional level, but we also have human life and growth cycles in 7 years, in 28 years, and there's other miniature cycle. There's other cycles in that, but the key ones are 7 and 28. 7 is a very powerful. Everything is renewed within 7 years, but in 28 years is the full cycle of Saturn. The sun, the planet Saturn circles the sun every 28 years, and you will go through what's called a Saturn return. And and these cycles are very much related to economics and politics and currencies. Believe it or not, astrology has a huge part to play. It is the ultimate macro cycle. So when you really study this in depth, you'll see it. If you really studied full history of humanity on Earth, this would become very, very apparent. And it's very much aligned also with the solar cycle, the cycles of the sun. And actually the sun is what's, I believe, is a central feature in the climate change that's going on. And the moon as well. And even all the other planets and where they're placed. And so, yeah, that's another big cycle. But basically, we are at the end of a master cycle, super cycle. We're also at the end of an age, as Jesus said, "I shall be with you unto the end of the age." And then he went on to say, "You shall do greater things than I," because he meant we shall do greater things when we will eventually come together and unite. And that's why we will do greater things, because we will eventually, I think, learn through all these, through the ups and downs of life and over eons, we will learn that we have to unite and we have to work together. So looking at the economics, the current economics, Ray was really made an emphasis on the debt. The debt is at historic levels. It's way more than the 33 trillion that America is supposedly owes. For America, that is. I mean, the global debt is in the quadrillions. And that is a number so long, I mean, it almost defies comprehension. It's such a big number. And even though, and we're in a debt-based society, and it's through debt that money is created, and it is through debt that we have created quite a good lifestyle for ourselves, and particularly for the bankers and the creators of the system. But that's all now coming to an end. So what they're trying to do, I believe, is manage the fallout so that they're not implicated and that we are in some way, or we become the collateral. We become the guarantors to the debt that they created. So this is a big part of the debt problem is derivatives. Derivatives are really this hidden debt bomb that most retail people never see. These are the debts that are passed around from bank to bank, central bank to central bank, central bank to major investment bank. These are the underlying debts of everything that they package up into smaller and smaller fractions. It's mortgage debt, it's car loan debt, it's everything. And they sell the debt. They sell the debt to each other. And each time it passes on, the principal or the actual worth of the derivative gets less and less, and the debt becomes bigger and bigger. So this where they're at the end of the line with that. And then we've got the interest rates. Interest rates are obviously rising. There's a very big problem with commercial real estate that has been surfaced. It's a slow moving sort of thing. It's not it doesn't immediately impact. This is where people sort of get into a false sense of security. When they start raising interest rates, or when they start doing major changes to the system, there's always a lag period of at least a year or two, because they're locked into contracts and this sort of thing, and they're still paying the lower interest rate from earlier years. But there are huge amounts of commercial real estate debt maturing next year. 2024 is when it's really going to start heating up. And a lot of the more smaller banks or the retail banks principally are holding huge amounts of debt against commercial real estate. It's massive. It's a massive problem in the US, but it's a massive problem worldwide, especially since COVID, because a lot of people don't go to an office anymore. Since COVID, they still are working from home, and a lot of people are more mobile, and there isn't the need for expensive real estate in a CBDC any longer. There's obviously our own home loans, home mortgages. There's government debt. There's credit card debt. There's student loan debt, which is massive in America. It's over $1 trillion. There's car loan debt, business debt, bank debt, and central bank debt. So the debt is right across the board in the private sector, in the public sector, in the corporate sector, everywhere. So you just can't escape it. And with the fact that they are raising interest rates into the face of this huge debt, the interest now is, in America, the interest rate is even greater than their defense budget for a year, which is like massive. It's over $1 trillion. So that is just insane. So, and then you've got this looming inflation issue. Supposedly they raise interest rates in order to tackle inflation, but all that's doing is it's never going to solve the inflation issue. It is a ruse to make people think that the central banks are doing everything they can. Inflation is actually exacerbated by the interest rates because it puts the price up of everything. Companies are passing on their debt burden and their interest costs to the people. And, it's supposedly stopping us from consuming, but it's not driven by consumer. The inflation's not driven by the consumer. The inflation is driven by money printing or money issuance. It's not printing anymore. Money issuance, the interest, and the supply chain that has been smashed, and any number of other things that have happened since COVID. But those are the main ones. So because US dollar is now basically getting attacked from all sides, there is a high chance of hyperinflation in the US, at least, anyway. I mean, it's happened in other countries like Venezuela. A lot of other third world countries have experienced hyperinflation, Argentina. But it is possible it could come to the US. But I wonder whether there might be an intervention before it actually becomes full-blown hyperinflation. But certainly we're in a high inflation environment, and it's hurting a lot of people. The reason why the bankers actually want inflation and they wouldn't even mind hyperinflation is because that is a potential way for them to eradicate a lot of their debt. But they're going to try and eradicate their debt while still they're going to still try and come to us for our debt. So if we're not holding assets, we're not holding real assets, we've only got cash or we've got no assets, then inflation is going to really kill us. It's going to really hurt us. That's why we have to stay ahead of inflation through holding income-producing assets or assets that are inflation-proof, like gold, silver, and now it appears that crypto, Bitcoin particularly, has been a great example of inflation-proof asset. And obviously then there's businesses. Some businesses can, stay ahead of the curve. But to keep it simple, the metals, and some cryptos. Not all crypto is going to be not all crypto is going to be good and save us, but some cryptos are going to be could be very, very advantageous. So also we've got a currency problem, and this is really because of the debt as well, and because of the money printing. That kills fiat currencies. They're not backed by anything. They're failing around the world, and they're failing faster now because the USA is actually experiencing, the high inflation. So what they say is the US is exporting their inflation to other countries, and they're also having to bear a fair high burden themselves through their own hand. Then we've got the specter of CBDCs looming on the horizon. I'm no longer fearful of CBDCs. At first, when they first were touted, I was like, oh my God, it was pretty, in your face. But the fact is that 90% of countries are exploring or actively developing a CBDC. And a CBDC doesn't necessarily have to be a draconian measure unless we allow it to become one. And with the option of jumping into other more safer currencies that are decentralized, decentralized crypto and other cryptos, and I think are providing a good possible solution. And I'm sure that the CBDC itself, it doesn't have to be programmable. It doesn't have to be a control measure if we make sure that is not implemented. But anyway, we're going to have to see how that's going to play out. So basically, all Western countries' economies are failing, along with some huge Asian countries, such as China. China's not doing well either. And Japan is also really been underperforming for many, many years. And Japan is a very big country, and they're the first or second biggest holder of US debt. So that puts them in a very difficult position. And so is China. China and Japan are the biggest holders of US treasuries or US bonds. Basically US debt, which is how they bring currency. One of the ways they bring currency into effect is they issue a bond, and then that allows them to print more money or issue more money. So everything is interconnected in this global economy. With globalization, we've become very, very intricated. But what's happening now is that this whole globalization nirvana is crumbling. Globalization is a guy, Peter Zeihan, who's very clued up on demographics and macro things. He is saying basically globalization is already over. When Russia and this proxy war in Ukraine, Russia, that basically put the sword to globalization. And so this is part of why we're in quite a lot of chaos, because they've reached the end of that road as far as globalization is concerned. So, and then we have the war, the specter of war and conflict. And war is there's a hot war and there's silent wars. We've got hot wars happening in Ukraine, Russia, and in Israel now, Israel, Palestine, and the Arab world. These are just part of it, but we've also got a silent wars going on against the people, basically. and just what they are imposing on us is totally, it's non-human, it's not humanitarian in any way. It's a means of control as things continue to collapse. The powers that were are basically throwing out everything but the kitchen sink towards us in order to try and retain their power. That's why they're doing it. So, and as Ray Dalio said, you've got the internal conflicts as well, which leads to more draconian laws, censorship, less rights for us people, because this whole war narrative plays into that hand beautifully for them. Look at 9/11. Look what happened after 9/11. Immediately they brought out I forget the name of the act in America, but it was basically they ramped up the spying, they changed the laws quite dramatically in that post 9/11 period. And now that they're really going for full enactment of that now. And then you have the external conflicts, and these are the global superpowers fighting. They're fighting over lots of things, but basically it comes down to power. Comes down to power and control at the end of the day. But they're fighting over money, the control of the money, who controls the money, controls the world. They're fighting over energy, who's controlling the energy also controls the world. And the same with food. They're fighting over food. They're fighting over technology. They're fighting over resources such as water. And they're fighting over territory. And in the case of Ukraine, they're fighting over territory. And they're fighting over territory too in Israel and Palestine. Israel, which is basically owned by the Rothschilds, see Palestine as their land. They're just basically trying to steal the land of the Palestinians, when they were actually, they have the rights to that land. And I'm not going to get into that side of it, but it's a long standing issue that goes right back to the beginning of time. See, Israel is very important to the powers that were, because they believe their ancestors came out of there. And also the grid of the earth there, the power vortex, there's a very powerful vortex. They say that what happens in Israel affects the whole world. It's one of the reasons why they built the Great Pyramids in Egypt, in that whole area, because those pyramids are connected to the whole grid of Earth. And that is sacred land for many reasons. And so the powers that were feel that they should have full control and ownership of it, because they believe that by doing that, then they can basically control the rest of us through this kind of energy manipulation, if you like. So there's a lot, it runs deep and wide. And as Ray said, there is not one superpower. People think that it's us versus them. It's one superpower, one cabal. All the central bankers and all the governments are all in collusion against us. It's not the case. They're fighting amongst themselves. Particularly, there's two main factions. We believe it's kind of, you could say it's the Europeans versus the Americans, or you could say it's the Rothschilds versus the Rockefellers, or, but basically these are long-standing rivals, and they're also at different times, they've been friends. The Rothschilds and the Rockefellers have been friendly up until recently. Now they apparently have fallen out, and so they're also fighting. And the Rockefellers basically have America. They basically control America. They control the oil. They control the pharmaceuticals. whereas the Rothschilds basically they're behind control of the WEF, the World Economic Forum, the United Nations, and Europe. They control Europe, and so they're basically fighting over the spoils, if you like, of the Earth's resources, us, money. And I think one sort of wants a full-blown communist, starting off as socialism, then it's the creep to communism, then ultimately fascism, whereas the other side is more capitalism. But I would say that I wouldn't put it past them that they ultimately all want fascism as well for themselves. So, but this is sort of what's playing out. But you've also got to remember that within each of these countries, not country against country or say group of countries like Europe against America, because you've got these internationalists seeded, they're controlling all the countries as well. It's really this handful of people controlling the countries. So it's not as clear cut as like China versus USA, because people that live in USA have a lot of sway over what happens in China. There's a lot of trade going on and all that. So basically all wars are come to banking, currency, and trade wars. And really at the heart of all of it is the money. It's the money and the system of which the money is run on. It's also oil and energy is a huge factor in this. Gold and silver is a big factor. A lot of these countries are now hoarding gold, particularly gold, and silver. It's a very valuable metal as well for industry, solar panels, electric vehicles, all the new technologies, smartphones. Silver is very, very important. A very sought after industrial metal, whereas gold is true money, God's money, as they call it. Then you've got central to all this is the arms industry. They call it the defense industry. I think that's a complete joke. There's nothing defensive about the defense industry. It's all about offense. And I heard an interview where the CEO of Raytheon is one of the biggest defense contractors, actually boasting about how much money they're making out of this Israel conflict. So, they're really just, making money out of it, and that's what they're after. And the control and the power that comes by being so monetary powerful, if you like. The food and supply chain is very much at the heart of it all as well. I mean, without food, we're not going to be around too long. And I'd say also water. There's also the land, water, the elements are all a central part of it. And then you've got these hotspots, you've got these real conflicts everywhere. You've got the Taiwan-China thing. You've got the Ukraine, which is really NATO, which is mainly spearheaded by America versus Russia. So it's really a proxy war with America and Russia. You've got the Israel versus Palestine, and on the Palestinian side, you've got Iran, you've got the Arab world, you've got Saudi Arabia, you've got Jordan, you've got Egypt. A lot of these countries have a fairly uneasy relationship with Israel. I'd say mainly because Israel is owned, really, like I said, it's literally owned by the Rothschilds. The Balfour Agreement was done after World War II. And really, so they're not really Jewish, they're Zionists. There's a big difference between a Zionist and a Jew. So they use this anti-Semitism as a shield for them to hide behind. That's basically why They created the anti-Semitism laws and all that. If you dare to, bag Israel, then you're in deep shit because but really they are using the Jews and they're using them as cannon fodder, basically. So and then you've got the kind of national politics, what's happening in each country, and so they're an extension of the big global superpowers. Different countries come under different umbrellas of these global superpowers. And New Zealand's kind of caught between China and USA. So I think there's a wrangle going on with New Zealand. But we're only a small, tiny country, and we need protection from a bigger, more powerful country. And so it's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out here. But the governments here and around the world have got a big problem. There's a global decline in tax take. The tax is declining. The government interest rates are going up. Therefore, their debt is skyrocketing. And we know government debt is basically, we are the guarantors of government debt. A lot of our tax, more than 50% of our tax, goes to just pay the interest on our debt. So we are bankrolling the government. It's absolutely it's crazy. It's all about face. And there's new laws coming in attempting to restrict our rights on multiple fronts. They're using the climate, they're using everything, transhumanism, whatever. You've got MMT, modern money theory, which is basically putting us all on a kind of welfare. You've got the censorship of free speech going on. You've got 15-minute cities. This is all part of the climate change. They want, electric vehicles. Have you ever noticed how electric vehicles have a very short range of it? I think that's been done on purpose because it restricts how far you can go, and you've still got to use the power grid to power it up. Electric vehicles, I feel, going to the whole industry, I think, is going to get completely destroyed eventually, and there was going to be a whole lot of other much better technologies for transportation that will leapfrog electric. And then we've got land grabs starting to happen around the world, and as I say, they're going to use the securities laws to try and grab the land. And I think I do mention that a bit more just further on. But there's definitely a plan. Whether they're going to be successful or not is another matter. I don't believe they will be. I just do not see a world, not in my world, do I see them stealing our land or everyone's land, and we all becoming serfs, complete serfs, renters, and, as Klaus Schwab said, owning nothing and being happy. By him saying that, it is absolutely announcing their plans and what they were trying to do. How they're going to do it, we know now, using security laws and the debt to make us the collateral. So we've got to sort of be really on our guard. And then comes in the technology that Ray alluded to, and of course, specifically crypto is a big part of that. What's happening in this space, I think, often gets overlooked by truth seekers and truth advocates and people who want freedom. I think there's a lot of beliefs that we don't need technology at all, or we can do without money, we can do without technology. Let's go back to the land and live the simple life with barter, no money, and all of that. And I am actually not against. I think that's a great ideal. However, I don't think this is the right time for going cold turkey on technology and money. When all the forces that are happening in the world, all the infrastructure has been already built based on a technology platform. A few people standing up and saying, no, I'm not going to have money or technology is like literally like spitting in a 300-kilometer-hour hurricane and thinking you're going to make a difference by making your stand. It's just folly. And because a lot of people are either fearful of technology or they have a lot of belief structures around money, that's where our shadow lies. The shadow will always show up in what we resist, and what we resist persists and will intensify. So if we continue to resist technology and money, we're just going to get more of what we don't want. So in this time, I think what we have to do is try and find avenues and ways, healthy ways where we can utilize the technology and these new forms of money and currencies that are coming and make it work for us so that everybody is looked after in a universal distributed way, which is what decentralization promises. And then from there, when we have retained ownership of our land and our assets and we've got control of our own money, then we can start to move towards a more utopian world without so much reliance on money, or certainly reliance on the money the way it is set up as it is at the moment. So with XRP, for instance, and the other distributed ledger technologies, they have got this system where they've got a neutral, decentralized exchange going on. They are setting up as bridge currencies, bridging different countries and cross-border payments that effectively could help to eliminate a lot of these wars. Because if everything comes back to money and it's a fight over whose currency is going to win, who is going to have the most money, if you've got centralized money and they're issuing money from a centralized source, then they can do whatever the hell they like. But if you remove that from anyone and basically the currencies like XRP sit in the middle as a neutral exchange of like one fiat to another or one crypto to a fiat, and it's a technology that can't be stopped. You can't go and knock on the door of XRP or Ripple, company Ripple, and tell them to stop the technology, because that's, there is no one who's actually controlling it. Once it's set free for life, basically, until unless you pull the whole internet down. And I don't subscribe to that. There's a lot of people that say, yeah, the internet's going to come down. It might for a brief time. But these guys have got backup plans anyway with QR codes and that. But I think it'll all be, we're going into a digital world and a digitized system. So I think it will only be a short term myself. But hey, if it does go completely offline, well, that's why I think it's good to be prepared with some of the other things, like the basic sustainability, food, community, and all of that. So I'm not just a total advocate for be wealthy in the form of money and focused on crypto only and technology only. I'm not an advocate of that. I'm an advocate of all things in balance. So, but I think XRP and XLM will play a huge part in helping to calm the waters of this global conflict, because no one will be able to control that. or not directly anyway. And that's why they've got things like the escrow. I mean, we can go into it again, and we can go into that in depth. There's details in there that it's good to go into, but not now. And then you got the wider system, the ISO 20022. It's a whole new banking system. It's ready to go. You can't stop it. This train has already left the station. It's left Central Station anyway, and it's on its way. And combined with that, these new APIs, these new programming integrations that's going to link traditional business and traditional banking, bricks and mortar banking, with the fintechs, the financial technology firms like Ripple, like Stellar, like Zinfin of XDC, and all these companies are going to be linked up to the global money supply and the global global issuance of currency and transfer of assets and all of that. That is going to be a massive thing when it gets fully revealed to the people. There's going to be huge changes, and it's imminent. It's so imminent. It's actually it's getting plugged into the main payment corridors this month. So keep an eye on that. Then we've got the decentralized blockchain technology, which we obviously focus on. I hang my hat on that. That is going to be a big factor to help us alleviate the pains that will be felt by a lot of people. The pain of CBDC. It's the pain of this poverty sort of welfare state that they want to create us in. We've got to have control of our own currency, and we've got to be able to have an economy in which to spend it. And I believe that decentralized blockchain is going to give us all that. It'll give us our own ecosystem where we'll be able to buy, sell, trade as we do now without having to go into the central bank version, however that's going to look. Now, there's also a huge impact that's going to be made by AI, hugely. Each one of these are huge in their own right, but you put them all together, it's adding to this technological super cycle, and it's going to be big. And then you've got the computer chips and how they can do so much more. And they need to, with the AI, it's huge more processing power. They need huge more RAM and all of that, and more functionality with virtual reality, the metaverse coming. They need these special kind of chips that can hold a lot of information. And I believe that's central to the Taiwan issue. Taiwan is where the most advanced computer chips are made, where they come out of. And Taiwan is largely controlled by American cabal interests. And that's why I think China is trying to claim Taiwan, because they want to get access to these computer chips. There's new forms of energy that are coming that I believe will be truly green, free in inverted commas. Nothing will be completely free, but I believe it'll be free in the sense the way it's generated is with very low input and continuous output. So that's going to be a game changer. It is going to revolutionize the world on its own right, let alone all the other things. And I've already been party to this incredible technology that uses terahertz waves. Terahertz is the same technology we have for our iTerracare wand that we use that helps to heal us of our aches and pains and all sorts of things. And they can literally transmit terahertz wirelessly and power up. They've got it now to where they can power up smaller devices like phones, computers, other appliances, but they're developing it so that it can be powering everything, the whole house, cars, factories even. So, the technology here is really evolving, and they're developing miniaturized quantum batteries. Quantum in the sense that they are they will never run out. They've got almost an infinite life, and they're self-perpetuating, self-running, can hold energy for forever, basically, and they're tiny. And so there's all this kind of stuff coming in. Remember, energy, our personal energy, and energy production, power, electricity, and all that. These are what are so important to a global power, to the humanity, to everybody. And so hence there has always been a fight over fossil fuels in the past, and before that it was whatever it was probably I don't know, but whatever forms of power they had, there would have been, the elite would have controlled it. So basically, energy is a biggie. And you've got transportational stuff. There's whole new technologies coming out around that, anti-gravity craft, flying cars. I think we'll have space travel where you can literally buy a ticket and go to the moon for a day and stuff like this. This is all coming. And then there's the virtual reality and metaverse stuff that the blockchain will enable. So, there's a lot of things happening in the technology space. And I believe these are tools that can assist us if we're managed properly by people who are relatively conscious, and they're not being used against us or held back and used by them where they don't issue them out to us. So that's all part of a problem of centralization. Again, centralization is how the whole concept of conspiracy theory was born. It's how things are kept secret in the name of safety for us and all of this stuff. There's always a narrative going on about why they do what they do, but there's always another narrative that we could look at as well as to how and the exact opposite. So we've got to be careful of what they sell us, what's in it for them, and what could we stand to lose. So it's very apt question right now. So I think for us people, where our attention goes, energy flows. Our point of focus is what the powers that were want. They want our attention. If we're in a fully digitized world, what they need is our attention, because without our attention, they are not going to, no one's going to look at their ads. No one's going to buy their stuff. No one's going to do anything. And without our attention on all the dramas in the world, then basically we are not fueling the fire of these conflicts. If we just pull back and stay neutral, and that doesn't mean we're passive. It doesn't mean passive. Passive speaks of being subjugated or being a serf, or you're pacified, you're calmed down. I mean, that's what they want. They want us all to be calm and not fighting, basically powerless, disempowered. But neutrality is as fully empowered It's just that you're not buying into the polarization. You're not buying into the duality. You're not buying into the the have-beens and the will-be's and the you've got nothing to you've got everything to the whole split, the left-right game. I just don't buy it. I don't play it. And but I do observe. I do observe what's going on. And I think it's important to keep our powder dry because we don't know what's going to happen. But if we pull our energy away from all these conflicting things that are happening in the world, it will die on the vine. Their whole narrative cannot take hold when we are not fearing what they're doing and we're not reacting with emotion and fear and all of that. So focus on your ideal world, focus on your vision, have a purpose, and then focus on that. And that is the one thing that they hate. Then our attention is going where we want it to go, not where they want it to go. That's the key thing is focus on what you want, not what you don't want, and make that weave it into your whole life. Make it a living, breathing lifestyle. So, and this will keep your energy frequency high, along with other things like connecting with nature. I think that's another reason why they want to take all the national parks and they want to take all the beautiful land for themselves, cram us into cities that are filled with 5G. And then basically that's not going to keep us energized. We will have energy in their artificial form, but we will not have energization. We need connection with other people. We need connection with nature. We need to connect with something bigger than our physical body. We need to connect with our hearts. We need to connect with the children. We need to connect with life. And so this will help to keep our energy frequency high. And so, as I say up here, don't get polarized. Don't get dragged into a political or economic fight about who's right and who's wrong. It's just a waste of energy and a waste of time. So just refuse to engage in that. Switch off the TV and the media. And even if you can, maybe not fully switch off social media, but lessen social media and lessen the amount of the amount of crap that I see on there. And I see Facebook now, it's just becoming full of ads, targeted ads. I've been having a little bit of shoulder pain lately, and I haven't really been talking to anyone about it. And I've been having some issues with a little bit of toxicity, a little bit, my liver is a little bit overloaded. And I haven't been saying anything about it. And I've been suddenly getting all the ads for those things. And it's almost like, Facebook knows what I'm thinking. So it's quite crazy. So we've got to kind of, I think there's decentralized social media coming. Again, decentralization is going to filter into all areas of life, and media and social media will be a key one. And so we need to just, I think, be careful of how much time and energy we're spending on needless, journeys down rabbit holes that end up just wasting a lot of time and not getting you any further. Face your fears, don't bury them. Fear is there to be faced. Once fear is transcended, when you transcend fear, you face fear, you overcome fear, you become much more empowered. If you stay in constant fight or flight or freeze, you're a perfect recipe for CBDC and all the rest of the stuff they want to give you. So I don't think anyone here is in that bracket, but that is the goal. I mean, to have everyone petrified in fear, it renders you useless. protect yourself on every level. Finances, maybe have some physical gold or have some physical silver, have some crypto, have some cash on hand for the next transitional period. And if you can, have income producing assets. Real asset is something that will produce an income for you, and you will at least get capital gain and ultimately also an income off it, if ideally. So, and try and get out of debt. Stay out of debt, particularly credit card debt and high interest bearing debt. If you can, use your cash you've got in the bank to pay down debt. I think that's as important as holding asset. Then, get access to food. If you've got the room and the space, grow your own food. I've got so much food growing here now. It takes a lot of my time, but it's so good. It's so healthy. It re-energizes me. I was just doing some stuff out there before this, and it just lifts me up before I come on and do this sort of stuff. So, or get part of a co-op or connect with your community and maybe get food that way. Connection to land is very important, or communal land, or your own land. Either way, having land is a great way to be grounded and to be energized and to be protected in many ways from what's coming. Work on your own inner world, your spirituality, your personal energy, your connection to something divine or greater than just our physical nature. Definitely, I think everyone should have a spiritual pursuit or a belief in a divine being. I think if you get inspiration out of going to church, go to church, but I don't get attached to the dogmas and the sectarianism and religion, but go to church if it makes you feel good, connecting with other people. And if they're really they're free of all the structures of what religion is, and they're actually teaching you the real teachings, then why not? Also build up your knowledge. I mean, your knowledge is, you can't take your knowledge away from you. Your knowledge, your truth, your own personal creed. Ultimately, knowledge leads to wisdom, and which means basically where you get to the point where you know, when you know enough, you realize that you don't know much, and you've got to be open to knowing that you don't know. That's what really wisdom is. It's in the silence, and it's not being a know-it-all. It's actually being a not know-it-all. And connection to family, to your friends, and very important, your health. We have to keep our health. There's so many issues with health at the moment, and it's just a battle just to keep free of toxins and eat proper food and drink good water. All of those things, keep a healthy body, healthy mind, healthy spirit. It's very important. And connect with people offline, connect with people in person. I think that's very, very helpful, and we can share information, and we can be creating our own communities. We create our own economies, we create our ecosystems with others, and we can talk face to face. The digital technology world can only get you so far. I think it's important to connect with people. So basically, summarization, everything is connected. What's happening in the world affects everyone. And it's all happening in cycles. We've got to sort of understand where we are in cycles of life, in the big picture and in the little picture. excuse me, money, fiat currencies, debt, and centralized control are at the heart of the problem in many ways. Or the centralized control is really the heart of the problem, because they then get to do whatever they want with the money and the currencies and the debt. So we need to break open that. We need to break open their cookie jar, and we need to start using technologies like blockchain to help us get more oversight, more transparency, and appropriate privacy, particularly of our identification. Energy is crucial to an economy and to us personally. Look after your energy, and in the world of energy generation, they need to get. We need to get these big problems resolved, and it's going to take time. It's going to take time to resolve the energy issue. Countries are not necessarily fighting against each other. A few select oligarchs are fighting each other and the citizens. War funding for both sides is coming from one central point in that conflict, just like World War I and World War II. What they do is what a funding source will be helping both sides. And if people don't know that yet, you need to. You need to know that it's not us versus them. It's basically not in the sense of the conflict. There is an unseen, invisible, hidden hand that is fueling both sides. They inflame both sides. They use people that are easily controlled. They love these kind of insurgent types who, very angry, very low energy people, and they throw them into the front line like, they don't give a shit about them as a person. They're just using people like cannon fodder. So we need to sort of start realizing this. Imagine if they tried to create a war and no one turned up. Well, this is why war is being perpetuated, because we are ignorant to what's happening, because we buying into the polarization. We don't have sufficient knowledge. We're basically unaware we are being used like literally rats in a cage. So history is repeating itself. Yeah, so like Ray said, it's like a movie. If you know what history did in the past, we can kind of get a bit of a prediction of what's going to happen now. And it's all playing out like a movie. And it is in constant repeating cycles. Nothing new under the sun, as the saying goes. Existing infrastructure can be used for good or bad, same as technology. So on that point, I think, like, if people get petrified about the 5G and all the infrastructure that they're setting up with biometrics and all of that, well, that could all actually be used for very useful, good purposes. So what if maybe we got them to install all this technology, and then once we remove the bad apples, or once things get more, when people become truly awake, the 5G could be beaming terahertz waves. The phones could be literally like a receiver giving you more energy. You can be the infrastructure all over even the biometrics could be used in a way. I don't know how, but there are ways where it could protect our privacy, as long as the information isn't being collected by a central point. If it's truly decentralized and encrypted, then it doesn't matter if someone's reading my eyes, as long as Mr. Rothschild isn't the one who's getting my information. So again, this is why centralization, the way information is collated and collected and held by one small group against our actual knowledge of what they're doing, that's really the heart of the problem. So technology itself is inert. The technology isn't fighting us. The technology isn't doing anything other than the way certain people are programming it, just like the computer, just like our brain, actually. So people don't need to fear the actual what's coming. We just need to know how we could solve the problem. The things are likely to be dire for a while, from now until 2026. This is my own personal opinion after watching a lot of videos and reading a lot and blah, blah, blah over many, many years. But I think we're coming to a head. We're coming to I'd say the major global reset is imminent. I sort of think it's 2025 myself, or late 2024, could be into late 2025. But it's, that's not far away. That's a year or two at the most away. And what I see is from 2026, we're going to have a movement towards humanity and freedom. That's in my vision. That's what I see. And whether I'm right or wrong, it doesn't matter, because it makes me feel better now. And I know that by the time we get to 2025, 2026, I will have more information, I'll have more input, I'll have more knowledge to know exactly what to do to keep myself protected and keep my immediate loved ones and family as well in a safe place. So, what happens, we're in an evolution. The world is always evolving, and we are super creators. So we have to get into our creative mode and engage our mind and our emotions and our bodies and our hands and feet. And we have to just get mobilized. And we also have to find time to be completely immobilized in a sense of going within, finding silent time, putting on 528 hertz, or listening to the Gateway meditation. You can find the Gateway meditation online, hemisphere synchronization. It helps to balance the brain. It's so good for the brain. It's like literally like elixir for the brain. And when you're doing hemisync music and connecting with nature and connecting with others. And then the world could be falling to shit, but basically we're going to be creating something anew out of the old. We're basically going to be like the phoenixes rising from the ashes of the old world. And I just think that we're so close. And so, yeah, so basically it's been a long one today, but thank you for sticking with it, as that's basically all I've got for today. So I didn't realize I was going to go so long. Sorry about that. So, yeah, if anyone wants to make a comment, you're welcome. Otherwise, I will leave you to your evening.
Oh, that was awesome. Thanks, Tony.
Yep, you're welcome. Thank you.
Could you put the link in live? You can't copy